With the trade for Ryan Bates and him being expected to fill that starting center role for the Chicago Bears, unless something unexpected happens, we have now a clearer picture of both the Chicago Bears' draft capital and free agency space. And for those that are hoping that the Chicago Bears are going to sign some big-name free agents, I think if you read the tea leaves, it shows that the Chicago Bears are going to be very active in the free agent market. But there's going to be a lot of B-level free agents to really help flesh out the overall roster rather than sign a big name. I know that's going to be disappointing to some Bear fans, but I'm going to explain why on today's episode. We're also going to look at players that were franchise tagged the Chicago Bears still could look to make trades for. All that plus the mailbag right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform that we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content. So I want to talk about Ryan Bates, right? We now know that Ryan Bates is expected, per a lot of outlets, to be the starting center for the Chicago Bears. Now, the Bears could absolutely still look to take a center at some point in this draft, considering that their draft capital has come down some as far as the now only having 5 draft picks. They're going to be more selective at who they draft and where they draft that player at. But Bates is expected with his versatility to, as right now, to be that starting center role. And it's solid enough. The Bears are going to be paying a little over $4 million for a veteran center that can come in and absolutely start for them, and then maybe have some development pieces. They still got Doug Kramer, other players that they still are very high on as well, as they look to continue to fill out the depth on that team. And that is why this free agency, I know a lot of Bears fans, I know we talked about the Saquon Barkleys. We've talked about the Josh Jacobs, who has some rumored interest to come to the Chicago Bears. Shout out to Pat the Designer for breaking that on the show. We have, of course, those names, the Danielle Hunter, the Chris Jones, the big name free agents that a lot of Chicago Bears fans are hoping that the Bears can take a look at and make a move for. But I think when you look at the Bears' current salary cap situation, right, when you factor in everything, the Ryan Bates, the draft picks that we're having come in, the Bears are going to sit at around $44 million in effective cap space. So that means players that are like, for example, that are going to sign for $20 million per season, that really the Bears cutting their salary cap into almost half, considering all the positions that they need to draft. And I've seen you guys, listen, every position is not going to be filled. Every hole is not going to be filled in the draft. Those people that think the Bears absolutely got to make move for more draft picks because we have so many holes on the team, calm down. Not every hole is filled in every offseason, and definitely not within the draft. So the Bears are not going to get, and I feel pretty safe in this, unless a trade happens, which we'll talk about some players that were franchise tagged that the Bears can make a trade for that can help kind of fill out the roster with maybe bigger names, but not take up a lot of the draft capital because you're trading your matching salaries. But overall, I do think that $44 million in cap space, plus if the Chicago Bears are moving on from Justin Fields, which, I still hope that they hold on to him, but if they do that and they don't absorb salary back, that's another $6 million on the books for it. So you look at about $50 million. But overall, with the $44 million that the Chicago Bears have, that really does put a real big hurt on the chances of signing like a Saquon Barkley, to sign a Danielle Hunter, to sign a Chris Jones. These are guys who are going to command huge salaries more than likely. Now, Saquon, probably more around the $10-15 million range, more than likely, maybe less than that, depending on what the market dictates. But that's still one player that's eating up a huge amount of your salary cap. And I think more than likely what we're going to see from the Chicago Bears is going to see a balanced attack with them going after the B-level free agents. I know that's not as exciting for a lot of Chicago Bears fans to hear that, but I think there's going to be a lot of B-level free agents that can still come in. Hell, TJ Edwards was technically a B-level free agent. Now, yes, we got Tremaine Edmonds on top of that, but those are still guys that came in and made a big impact for the Bears. And I think the Bears in free agency are going to be looking more at fit and the totality of the picture than looking at necessarily players like Wilkins, who's $25 million annual average salary expected, right? Or Danielle Hunter, who's expected to get $21 million annual average salary on the open market. So the Bears are probably going to look at filling it out. And I think there are a couple of free agents specifically that fit that. One guy that we've talked about a lot is AJ Impencia. This is the defensive end there. He's slated right now, expected, again, this is between Over the Cap and Pro Football Focus, to sign a contract worth about $6.7 million annual average value, and that's a total of 3 years, $20.25 million. Now, this a lot better of a proposition than signing a Danielle Hunter that then is going to eat half of your available cap space. So this is kind of what I mean by what I say, that in Ryan Poles, kind of in the moves that he's going to make, is going to tell us and inform us of what he's going to do with certain positions, right? So I think that AJ Impencia is definitely still very solid. 25 years old, is 6.5 sacks last season, 2 interceptions from a defensive lineman. On top of that, he's coming off back-to-back seasons with 2.5 sacks. Also is a scheme fit and solid enough. I think we also have to look at it. I know having a big name on the opposite side of Montez Sweat that's getting a big money, and again, you can still draft the edge as well, but the Bears are going to be really kind of protective over their assets in this. Another one, you look at a wide receiver, which is a position that I know a lot of Bears fans are hoping that we address, but while, some of those bigger wide receivers, where this is a deep wide receiver class in both the draft and free agency, are gonna definitely command some money that's gonna take up a lot of your salary cap. So you can look at, for example, in an article that I saw, a kind of more cost-effective option that can still help with the Chicago Bears, definitely up that expectation on that wide receiver list, is Tyler Boyd. This is a guy who played with the Cincinnati Bengals. Now he's 29 years old, but again, this is kind of the level of free agents that you're looking at. Noah Fant's still a tight end that definitely the Bears could look at. He's expected to get about $8 million per year, so take a look at that one. But then you have players like safety Xavier McKinney, who's expected to get about $13.5 million. 4 years, $54 million is kind of the projection there for him. So that's another player that the Bears could look at that would still eat up a lot of the cap, but it's at a position of need. He's going to be a starter for you. So I think that that's what it comes down to, is that the Bears are going to have to be extremely protective over what they do and who they go after in free agency. And some of those Bears fans that are hoping that we're going to see the Bears willing and dealing for these big name free agents right away, I think we have to temper those expectations, because I just don't think, with the way that the salary cap situation is set up right now for the Bears, even though, yes, they came into this offseason having the third most cap space in the NFL, the franchise tag on Jalen Johnson, who we always knew, whether they signed him or not, was going to eat up a lot of that cap. Now, that could go away if another team does sign Jalen Johnson. The Bears would then get 2 first-round picks back, and then that $19.8 million of the franchise tag goes back to available money for the Chicago Bears. And then, hey, that could change some things as far as how we're willing and dealing in free agency. But I think overall, I know that we have some big name free agents that we would love to see on this team, and they'll absolutely automatically make that up the ceiling of this team considerably. And I would love to see them here too. But you also have to look at and think about the fact of who our GM is. And Ryan Poles is a GM that is very smart with his ability to be flexible under the cap and how he goes after and targets certain free agents. So while the Danielle Hunters, while the Saquon Barkleys, while the Tony Pollards, while, whatever else it is, are guys that we would love to see potentially come to this team and to get that big name, I just don't think that it's there. And so you look at Saquon, like paying at $12 million for a running back with injury history on top of that may just not be what the Chicago Bears look to do. And so I just don't want people to be disappointed. I really don't want them to be disappointed or think that the Bears still can't absolutely flesh out this team and add some great talent just because the bigger names aren't who we may end up signing in this free agency. I get it. We're sports fans. When you're a sports fan, you look at the best people on the market and you think and daydream about having those guys on your team and how it can help your team so much. But the realistic part of it is that you have to build out a full team. And you do have limitations in how you can do that. And you also have to think about adding to the team going forward in the future. And so because of that, I just don't know if the Chicago Bears go after some of these bigger names that you're going to hear rumors, you're going to hear articles written about, you're going to get clicks. I'm sure David Kaplan, his bald-headed hoe ass, is going to talk about him as well. But like when it comes down to it, the realistic aspect of that, I just don't know if the Bears are going to go after those guys. And listen, I'm not going to be the only one to say that. I'm sure other Bears content creators are going to talk about that as well. But we just got to be realistic in what. Now, that does not stop the Bears from still adding depth and adding quality players to this team. It's just the A-list free agents that the Chicago Bears that are there, that are rumored interest in, that the Bears have interest in. You just got to be realistic in it. And you guys know, one of the things here that we always love to do is facts over narrative, right? The narrative is great. The narrative is fun. I can get, if I would have changed the title of this video and titled this video, how the Chicago Bears can get XYZ A-name free agent, sure, it would have got more clicks, but it wouldn't have been as genuine. And so I just want to, you guys know, I like to talk about things and be realistic now. Again, like I said, the Jalen Johnson things change. maybe some players are moved around, whatever. Maybe something unexpected happens, or maybe Ryan Poles looks at it and does sign one big A-list free agent and then kind of fleshes the rest out in the draft and free agency. I just think that what we've seen from Ryan Poles so far, it's about depth, it's about fit, more than going after big names. And, he made that move last year at the trade deadline for Montez Sweat. Maybe that kind of informed it as well. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think I'm bugging? I could absolutely be bugging, but let me know what you guys think on that down below. If you're on the YouTube side, if you're on the podcast side, I'll tell you how to get your thoughts and ideas in towards the end of the episode. But next up, I do want to talk about, there were some players that were franchise tagged, but as we know, the franchise tag does not necessarily mean that a player is going to return to that team. There are still players that are franchise tagged that are eventually moved and traded. And I want to talk about a couple of guys that the Bears could absolutely look to make moves for, that could still trade for. And the first one is T. Higgins. I think he is the most likely franchise tag player to be traded when you look at it. He was one of the first players to get the franchise tag, which meant that his team did not plan on negotiating with him. The Cincinnati Bengals did not plan they knew that re-signing him and retaining him was going to be unlikely, so they franchise tagged him, which is going to allow him to be traded a little bit earlier in the process, and we'll see what they do. The biggest thing is that because he is somebody that's available, the capital that these Bengals could want for T. Higgins, that's going to be the thing. Now, I don't see the Chicago Bears giving up any draft capital in this upcoming draft with already being down to 5 picks, even with the historic haul that people think they're going to get if they trade for the number 1 overall pick. If they trade the number 1 overall pick, I still don't necessarily see the Bears, giving up the capital in this year's draft for that. Now, they have future draft picks. They have a lot of future draft picks actually that they can use to try to make a move for Higgins. The biggest thing is the compensation piece of that. Can the Bears put together a compensation package interesting and enticing enough for the Bengals to bite on that? Or is another team going to do that? But T. Higgins is, I think, the most likely candidate that's been franchise tagged that will be traded during this offseason. You guys can let me know. And T. Higgins definitely is a player that can help the Bears exponentially. Now, I do think if the Bears have to give up that type of assets that's expected that they may want, if that happens, I don't know if they do go wide receiver in this draft, because you're giving up a whole heck of a lot for a 25-year-old player in T. Higgins that can just outright ball. Now, he is coming off an injury, so that could also help the compensation be a little bit lower for him. But prior to that, 2 seasons of over 1,000 yards receiving in both those, 6 and 7 touchdowns. He had 5 touchdowns in only 12 games last year. So he's a guy that definitely can help the Chicago Bears, and I do think there's a potential of him being moved even while being franchise tagged. Now, another guy that I put right up there with T. Higgins that has the chance to be moved even though franchise tagged is Brian Burns. I think when you look at it, the Carolina Panthers are so far away that they know even if he did accept or did play on the franchise tag, he's all but gone in 2025. They've done nothing but kick that can down the road. Now, this is a guy who's ready to win now, right? When you look at it, 25 years old, 6'5", 240 pounds. We already know the measurables. 8 sacks last year, 1 fumble force, played 16 games. Matter of fact, he's been one of the healthier players at his position in the NFL, missing only a total of 4 games over the course of his NFL career. This guy can outright ball. And that's down a little bit, which also could help the draft compensation. He's coming off a down season. Only 8 sacks, down from the 12.5 sacks the season prior. He had 9 sacks and 9 sacks the 2 seasons prior to that. So down, right? The lowest amount of sacks that he's had since his rookie year, where he had 7.5 sacks. But I do think that he is a candidate to be moved strictly because of where the Carolina Panthers are as a team. Now, much like with Higgins, it comes down to the compensation. Can the Chicago Bears put together a compensation package enticing enough for the Carolina Panthers to win? Now, we already know the Bears and the Panthers have done business together before. These front offices have done business together before, and because of that, there may be some inclination for them to be able to do business again on a player that can absolutely help the Chicago Bears. There's no question about that. But will the Bears be willing to give that up is the bigger question here. And like I said before, especially now with kind of being more limited in that cap space area, the Bears trying to facilitate trades, kind of get a little bit more wiggle room to match those salaries, could be a big thing for the Chicago Bears as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if Brian Burns is moved. I wouldn't be surprised if Ryan Poles is on the phone trying to see about getting him to Chicago. And then the last one that I have on here is the player that I think is the least likely to be moved, but there is still some chance to be moved. But he's coming off an amazing year that I think could make it extremely difficult to get him moved, and that's Josh Allen. Now, this is a guy who you look at it, 17.5 sacks last year, 26 years old. He's coming off a career year, 2 forced fumbles, 1 interception. But he had in the last 2 seasons prior to last season combined, only having 15 sacks. And so he had more than his last 2 seasons combined in just last year. He's been relatively healthy since his second year in the NFL, where he missed half the games. He's played almost every game since then. He's only missed 1 game over the last 3 years. This is a guy who absolutely can ball out, but this is why I do think that he's the least likely to be moved, but there is a chance there, if you have the right compensation available, that the Jacksonville Jaguars would be interested in. So these are players that are franchise tag that fits needs for the Chicago Bears, that are big time primary that are premium positions for the game of football, and that the Bears could definitely take a look at bringing in. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. Now, before we get into the mailbags, we got to get into our message from our sponsor, and that's Aura. I'm sure most of you know anyone can find anything on the internet, including your full legal name and personal email, your home address, phone number, and even your relatives. For me, personally, I never took this kind of stuff seriously, that people can take my personal data and use it for their own financial gain. Well, in 2019, I got my identity stolen, including my social security number and credit card information, and it was a total nightmare getting it all sorted out. From recouping loans that were taken out in my name and shopping sprees on my credit card, there are some really bad people out there, and it's sad to say, but it's true. Do a Google search for your personal information or someone you know and see if a people search site shows up. The information is easily accessible because of data brokers who profit by selling your information to robocallers, telemarketers, spammers, and anyone else that wants to learn more about you. And so for me, protecting my and my family's personal data and information is at the utmost importance because of the terrible experience I had 4 years ago. That's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, Aura. Aura will identify data brokers that are exposing your information and automatically submit opt-out requests on your behalf. They will even opt out of junk mail and telemarketing lists. Aura also monitors your emails and passwords to see if they were involved in any data breach and exposed on the dark web. Aura's app also features VPN password manager, real-time credit card and identity theft monitoring, internet parental controls, and protects your device from malware. Aura has almost every internet safety tool you'll ever need, all inside one app, which is what makes it so amazing, so that you don't have to use multiple platforms and sites to protect yourself. Let Aura do the hard work, keeping you safe online. And if you sign up right now, Aura will give you a 2-week free trial with my link below. You'll be shocked at how much your private information Aura finds exposed over 2 weeks. I was shocked at how much my information Aura was able to find when I was using the app. Go to aura.com/CBC to start your free trial. Also linked in the description, or you can scan the QR code here. Now back to the video. All right, coming out of that, we do have 2 voicemails we're going to play today, even though mailbag day is tomorrow. You guys have been going off. This first voicemail, this one's from K2.
Yo, hey, what up, man? It's your boy K2, man. Just real quick, man, I've been waiting to call in because I wanted to see what they were going to do with the Jalen Johnson. Now that there's kind of a resolution, they kind of set in place, I want to know what our defense going to do moving forward. I don't even want to talk about the offense because they ain't got no choice but to be better. And with the way that they rebuilt the whole offensive staff, I believe we're going to be great no matter the situation. So I don't even want to talk about that, man. I just want to focus on the defense real quick. Let's talk defense. Chris Jones is available, dog. Yeah. Chris Jones is available for the taking. Now, I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. He needs to be in Chicago. Give them the number 1 pick and give us, okay, that's a little too much. But my point is we are in a great position to get Chris Jones, bro. You want to talk about a 3-tech? I don't care about Zach Pickens and that other guy. If we can get Chris Jones. If we can get Chris Jones, we're a legit Super Bowl contender, period. It don't matter who you add at safety. I mean, it don't matter who's back there. If Chris Jones is our 3-tech next season, and we are in a position, I repeat, we are in a position to pull that off, man. Like, if anybody deserves a decent contract, it's definitely him. I mean, I don't know if Kansas City really gonna let him go. All I'm saying is he an upcoming free agent, bro. We need that. Our defense needs that. We need Chris Jones on our defense, bro. There's a bunch of other guys that's available, man. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but who gives a damn about any of them when you can get Chris Jones? That's all I'm saying, bro, is we need Chris Jones in Chicago. Put it on the shirt, put it on the next 3 podcasts. Stop talking about the offense, and let's talk about this defense, because we need Chris Jones, bro. I know I ain't the only one that feel that way, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a bunch of other good players that we can pull to. I think Snead is a free agent too. I don't know, but I mean, there's a couple safeties that we can grab, bro. But Chris Jones, we need him in Chicago, y'all. Just tell me what y'all think about that, man. I hope y'all having a good week, man. Blessings. Chicago up, man down.
First of all, K2, when I'm in town for Bulls Fest, I do expect you to cut my hair. Not for free. Of course, I'm going to pay you. But with that said, Chris Jones, here's kind of like what I talked about in the first segment today, K2, is that Chris Jones is going to cost so much that I just don't know if the Chicago Bears are in a position to pay that type of money for a free agent. Yes, Chris Jones is everything that you talked about. Everything. He would be so important to what Matt Eberflus's system likes to be and how they like to bring that pressure from the inside. I just don't necessarily think that the Bears are in a position to spend almost half their cap space on just Chris Jones. I just don't expect it to happen. Now, I could be completely off on that. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, even in that segment, maybe the Bears do look at it and say, hey, listen, this is a player that absolutely ups our ceiling so much that it's worth spending half our remaining available cap space to bring them in. We'll figure out the rest as we go. So that's definitely still a possibility there. But I just don't think that the Bears are at a position right now. I mean, technically, yeah, with salary cap, to spend that much money on one player, unless it was like we already knew for a fact, right? Our quarterback was solidified. Yeah, well, the offense is going to be better. But let's say that right now with the cap space that the Bears have, if we were already a team that won a playoff game, won 2 playoff games, or looked solid in the second playoff game, that would be when I think the Bears, with this type of cap space, would make that type of move, because that's what gets you over the top, right? With the Bears still trying to become that playoff team and having limited cap space, I just don't see it. If we had the cap space that we did last season, then I would absolutely see us doing that. Again, this is not a knock on the player at all. This is just trying to honestly review where the Bears are with that cap space. But you guys can let me know what you guys think down below. Great voicemail from K2. Let's get into this next one. This one's from Dougie.
Haize, man. What's up, my boy, man? It's Dougie Deuce, man. AKA Too Much, man. I wanted to say something about this situation. I don't really want to speak on, what we ain't going to speak on no more, but I was thinking this about this draft coming up and how I was just thinking about keeping the picks, right? Or, whatever. Keep the picks. I was thinking that at number 1, take the best lineman. The second pick that we have, I know everybody's been saying Dallas Turner, the edge rusher, they want an edge rusher right there. They want a safety right. They want to see, they want everything at that next pick, a wide receiver. But I'm thinking, like, what would it look like to go get an offensive lineman with the first pick, and the next time we pick again, get another offensive lineman? Because at the end of the day, let's just keep it real. When your first quarter percentages look like the QB, I'm not trying to bring the QB up, but when all of his percentages are pretty high into the fourth quarter, I don't see the issue there. And I know the number 1 pick it has to be a quarterback, and that's the only reason why this is even, being a thing right now. But the number 1 thing has always been the offensive line. It's been the offensive coordinator throwing slant, and it's been the offensive line, bro. Like, come on. At least let's get some depth. I think if we went and got Joe Alt and Fashanu with our first 2 picks, I know that's as bad as I want Maserati Marv, as bad as I want him. That offensive line is still the problem, bro. Where are we last year with Joe Alt and Fashanu on that line? Where are we last year with that offensive line? The wide receiver combine looks to be great. We can get a fucking a Mooney from there. We can get a number 2 and a number 3 from this draft. It look like from the wide receivers if we don't do what everybody wants to do. The defensive tackles, it's gonna be one there. We got all that money in free agency, man. Look, we just need to get that line right. You gotta get players that's gonna be here for 10 years. Fuck all that beautiful shit. Shot-town up, bear down, man. Dougie Deuce on Twitter, man. AKA Too Much. Let's get it.
All right, so the Bears have limited draft assets. And I know as fans, we like to think that everything can be gotten But the fact of the matter is that I don't think that the Bears are going to spend 5 draft picks and draft 2 players at the same position or even position group unless they're like star-studded, and that's just not going to happen, right? Because of the limited draft capital we have. Now, a trade happens, we get some extra draft capital. You never know what could happen. Ryan Poles is always willing and dealing. That happens, that could change that. But I think with what we know right now, the Bears are going to be very selective. They're going to do still an extensive search. They're going to interview a lot of players. They're going to have a lot of top 30 interviews. They're going to do all of that type of thing. But when it comes down to it, I think much like with the cap situation, now that your draft capital has come down some, unless you do make a trade and get some more draft picks in the building, it's good. They're going to be very selective and of how they go about that. That's kind of my opinion on that. But not a bad thought process, Dougie, especially coming into a draft where we do have some draft picks. But I think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be kind of like how you laid out there. I think we're going to address some of those positions, maybe even all of them, but individually. And I don't think we're going to spend multiple draft picks like on the front on the offensive line or multiple draft picks on at wide receiver position. I think you're going to see a combination of like what we did, getting Ryan Bates. Then we may still draft another offensive lineman, but we addressed it in a multitude of ways. That's kind of what I think. But great voicemail there from Dougie. That's my time for today, guys. Make sure you guys are following the show at Shy Bear Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearCentral@gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. Thanks to you guys. First and foremost, thanks to you guys for the growth that we've had. And then like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.